What is going on, everybody? Not drinking coffee, too late for coffee, drinking some Saratoga sparkling wine. Cheers. If anybody wants Minute Women swag, make some comments down. I'll send it over to you. We're ordering more. But I thought I'd do a nighttime video, not because I wanted to do a nighttime video, but because I didn't have time this morning to do a live. And my goal is to do some lives 6 days a week, take Sunday off to rest, and then get back at it. But it will be an interesting to find out if we have more viewers at nighttime. Typically, like when there are events going on, to community events, the folks during the daytime that would do an event. Seniors go to daytime events. Professionals go to daytime events. More morning events and even afternoon events. But for working professionals, working adult children, nighttime is when they're going to different events to learn about whether it's Medicaid or home care or nursing homes or whatever it might be. Um, that's when they go to those events. And so it'll be interesting to see if this nighttime lives are better. And if they're better, then I guess I'll do nighttime lives because the goal is for education. But today I wanted to talk about this evening, and the lighting not as great. Don't have the beautiful sun outside, so I'm going to have to get some lights for in here, but it's good enough. Um, but today, this evening, I wanted to talk about as I drink a Coke and sparkling water, talking about um, the initial phone call. So a lot of people, it's interesting. A lot of people, and I understand this. A lot of people will be worried about that initial phone call. Like, hey, am I going to get, um, am I going to get, hard sold onto a service, and they're going to want to, sell over the phone. I think those days are over. I mean, even at a car dealership, those days are all over where they're going to hard sell you and try to make you make a decision on the spot and sign on the dotted line. And quite frankly, it doesn't matter for our business because you can sign on the dotted line in 5 minutes, change your mind, call us up, cancel services, and there's nothing we're going to do about it because we're not going to. Last thing we're going to do is force somebody to use services that they don't want. But we do get calls sometimes where um, people don't want to give names, they don't want to give phone numbers, they don't want to give um, information where we can reach back out to them to see how things are going. And from a agency point of view, that's kind of tough because you're trying to help somebody out and making a critical decision for their loved ones, and that can be problematic because we can't give you the information if we don't know what we're dealing with. And oftentimes people will say, well, just give me what your price is, and we'll give them the price. But typically we're probably not going to hear from those folks if they're price shopping because we're on the higher end, since we do specialized care. But I thought it would be good to go through kind of our perspective from the initial phone call and for your perspective for the initial phone call, um, so they kind of understand what you're going to be getting. Um, when somebody calls up, we at Minute Women, they're in the home care industry. There used to be a saying called like the first to get on the couch gets the sale, right? The first person that goes into the home to meet with the family is statistically going to get that family to sign on the dotted line, um, which probably makes sense, and logically it makes sense to do that. But what we found with Minute Women was that identifying the right fit is more important than just running out and trying to get somebody to sign on the dotted line. There is a lot that goes into onboarding a client, and there's a lot of time and energy and processes that are done. And time is money, right? To be quite frank, and taking the time to make sure that somebody's the right fit for us as well as we're the right fit for them is important, because we're going to be batting close to 100 if we're the right fit and we have the right need. But if we're just running out to pitch somebody on a couch and get them to sign on the dotted line, they may end up being disappointed with our services, and that could be a problem long term, and for our reputation, and certainly for the family that's not getting the care that they're looking for. So I would suggest when you call up an agency, don't be afraid to give that information. Don't be afraid to um, provide the details of what the situation is that you're looking at, and then that way you may be very pleasantly surprised. Um, I would recommend to have the decision maker call up. Oftentimes, folks may have like an in-law call up, or a family friend, and they're just trying to help out and do things, and it's coming from a very good place. But if we're not talking to the decision maker, who very likely makes who very likely knows the intricacies of the situation, it's going to be hard to determine if we're the right fit for that individual, and if they're the right fit for us. And so typically, like when a family friend's calling up, they're calling up with, basic information of like, well, somebody needs care. We think it might be, a few hours, or it might be 8 hours a day, but then that information can change. And from a agency perspective, just to be completely brutally honest, um, it sends up a little bit of a, I won't say red flag, but yellow flag, because we've been doing this long enough to know that if a family friend's calling up, the information they're giving us is inaccurate, and we're going to be doing a lot of stuff behind the scenes to try to get ready for things. For knowing in the back of our mind that could be all be changing very quickly, because when we're going based off of certainly a schedule, like I've said in other videos, we're looking at availability, personality, and ability, and their ability. And so we're trying to find the right available caregivers that are going to be the best match for that individual. And then for somebody to say, actually, that person was wrong. We're not looking for, 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. care. We're looking for 7 to 7. Well, there's a good chance that many of those caregivers that we reached out to um, are not going to be available those times, because, a few hours does matter, because their schedules are all different based off of their family lives, based off of where else they're working, and that 2 hour difference might be a game changer with the care team that we're able to bring in. So just something to kind of think about, um, to be empathetic and to understand that it may be a very daunting task to feel like you need to call 4 or 5 agencies yourself. But it's a big decision. And on top of that, it's a lot of money you're going to be spending. So you really want to make sure that you're getting your answers, your questions answered, and getting the right information to talk to people. I would say that 80% of the people that we talk to, we tell them they're not the right fit for us, right? So, and we'll do that as quickly as possible so that we can point them in the right direction of who to call to, who to call. And see, I'm messing up all my words because it's nighttime and I'm exhausted, but who to call. And we can point them in the right direction for what they're doing, which we're happy to do, because I think that's just good karma. It's good business. It's helping people, which is important. But it's something to consider if you're looking at this. And if you're in the greater Boston area, feel free to call Minute Women. We're happy to have those conversations. I usually start the videos like this, not 8 minutes in. If you're outside of the greater Boston area, we won't be able to help your service. We won't be able to provide services to you, but hopefully these videos give you some information. So that onboarding, that initial phone call is big. It's also partly big because, in my experience, that is when we have the most undivided attention from the potential client. That we're a top priority at that point, because that is the biggest need that they have in their lives. And then when that need gets filled, understandably, it gets, that priority changes, and other things going on in their lives become the top of the priority, and it can be harder to have some conversations. So we like to have a lengthy conversation on that initial call. We do our best to do everything on the phone. And the reason why that is versus trying to rush out to the couch is that, first of all, it's scheduling, right? It's trying to figure out when the best time is for everybody, which is difficult in and of itself. But when you're working with somebody living with dementia, they can have really good days, they can have really bad days, they can be exhausted that day. And, to navigate not only two people's schedules, two professional schedules, and that family member schedule. I mean, we're available pretty much any day to meet if somebody wants to do that. But, you know, their schedule may be limited. And then if mom or dad is having a bad day or they need care and they have to cancel that meeting, then it just delays that initial call. So I think having that having that phone call is ideal and it's timely. And then certainly if families want to meet us afterwards or have a second meeting, we're fine with that. It's whatever they want to do. But that's kind of what I found in my last 15 years is that you typically, you know, it's the highest priority when they're making that call, and you can have their undivided attention. You can give them the information that they need to make a decision that's best for their situation. Um, and trying to coordinate three people's schedules, especially when you're working with a disease like dementia, can make it really tough to have a timely visit within sometimes a few hours, 24 hours, 48 hours after that initial call. But to go through the process, the main part of this first initial call is to listen and understand the current situation. Typically, we'll say something like, what is the reason that you're calling us today? Or what were the events that led up to you deciding to call Minute Women dementia care specialists? And then we be quiet and we get ready to write down a lot of stuff, right? And sometimes for families, that's just venting. That's the first time they maybe been able to vent and just kind of unload some of the stresses and the anxiety and the concern that they have for their mom or their dad. And it's not a bad thing. It's just there's been a lot built up. And so we're getting a machine gun of information. But we do have a process to try to guide that family member through this so that we can find out what the situation is. And so it's really just understanding what the current situation is, where somebody is, both mentally, both physically. And what I mean mentally is like, are you needing services immediately? Do you need services in 3 months? Or where is mom or dad physically? Are they in the hospital where they're going to be going into rehab, which means we have time? Or are they in the hospital and it's Friday night at 3 o'clock and they're coming home in 3 hours? All right. So we know that this initial phone call is going to be shortened. It's going to be quick. It's going to be concise because we need to get working on it. And, you know, those are never the best situations to make really important decisions, but a lot of families find themselves in those situations. And so, you know, it's a totally different conversation when it's like, I need somebody in 3 hours. Where do I sign on the dotted line? How do I give you payment? And how quickly can you get somebody out there? Okay, here you go. We're going to triage this through the weekend, and then we're going to work on the availability, ability, and personality match starting next week, because we really need to look at, you know, availability and ability. We're not too worried about personality in a triage situation because time is of the essence, right? And it takes time to find the right caregiver and make those calls, dozens and dozens of calls to different people. They call back, you miss them, you need to call back and find out what people's schedules are. In home care, schedules change dramatically because, like I've said in other videos, caregivers work for multiple agencies. So what they told you their schedule was last week, it could be vastly different to what it is today. So that's why you might be making dozens of calls, because somebody's availability has changed. And then learning, taking the time, if time isn't of the essence, to understand what the care needs are. What are the top priorities right now in the next, you know, few weeks? What are the long, medium term care needs? What are the long term care needs? What is somebody looking for? And getting an idea of what matters to them. Are they worried about elopements? Are they worried about aggression? Are they worried about just, you know, not just, but ADLs and personal care? Are they just worried I need some time to be able to spend with my family, so it's night times to get some care? Or dad's wandering at night and he's a fall risk and we need to redirect him to go back to bed, or make sure that if he is going to get up, that he's safe when he's at home alone at night when we're sleeping to get ready for work the next day. So understanding what the care needs are, and then it goes to providing education on the industry, which is what we do here. In almost every call, we're having a conversation of how this industry works, so that they're not wasting their time calling 15 different agencies asking, why can't you do 1 hour in the morning and 1 hour at night? and letting them know that they can certainly do that, but it's going to be very difficult. And a lot of times people thank us and say, hey, listen, I really appreciate that you've explained this to me. Nobody else has. And it makes total sense why I keep striking out with every agency that I'm calling, and letting them know kind of what the expectations are on that. Like I said before, in almost every video, there's going to be turbulence here. That's what we're here for. We're here to collaborate with you. This is a collaborative effort to care for your loved one. There are going to be challenges along the way, and you're going to be frustrated with a caregiver. Potentially you might be frustrated with your mom or dad. You might be just frustrated in general that you're in this situation, and we're here to help you with that. And through that process, we're finding out if we are the right fit for an individual, if they are going to have success with Minute Women or they're not going to have success with Minute Women. And just because somebody says, I want 12 hours a day of care and my mom has dementia, that doesn't mean that they're a right fit for us. It certainly improves the likelihood that we're going to be able to provide care to them, but it doesn't mean that they're going to be a perfect match. I explained in a previous video that we had an individual that we had a son that wanted to use Minute Women for 12 hours of care for their parent. And one of the triggers their parent had was that they get agitated when somebody is just kind of inactive, meaning like a caregiver would be inactive. So he said, well, what are the care needs? Well, the care needs are really like helping out with personal care, EDLs, making sure that they're engaged. But my loved one, I think it was his dad, but I can't remember now. But his parent also liked to just kind of watch TV or didn't like to be too active. So we said to the son, well, if one of the triggers for your dad, let's just say it was his dad, I can't remember. If one of the triggers is for your dad is inactivity when somebody's just kind of hanging out and they get agitated with that, and your dad likes to hang out, well, what is the caregiver going to be doing? And he's going to be like, well, most of the time they're just going to be hanging out, just waiting for my dad to need help, which is common to happen in home care, right? I use the analogy where lifeguards, we're not always on our feet actively caring for somebody every minute of the shift. There's times where the caregiver is just sitting there while somebody's enjoying their activity and is waiting for care to be needed. That's why it's long blocks of care. But as you can probably surmise from my little story here, is that we said, well, if your dad's going to be hanging out for a long time and the caregivers are going to be hanging out for periods of time, and your dad gets agitated and triggered by people hanging out, isn't going to have bad quality of life? Isn't that going to trigger his aggression and he's going to have a really tough time with that? And he was like, oh my God, you're right. You're absolutely right. I never even thought about that. And he spoke with us and he realized that we weren't the right match for them. As much as we could do 12-hour shifts and we could have gone in there and given them, probably a week or two of billable hours before we all realized that this wasn't working out. Maybe it had only been a shift or two if he really got that agitated. But it wasn't right for the client. The client wasn't going to have a high quality of life. The client wasn't going to thrive in that situation. Their quality of life was going to decrease because of our presence there. And that's not a way I want to make money, right? That's not a way that I want to run my operation or our business. And we said, we're not the right fit for you. And he said, you're absolutely not. And I think he gave us a Google review off of that because we were so honest with him, and he realized that home care wasn't the right fit for him. But he was calling up home care companies to see if they could care for his dad. And it was never going to work out because the caregivers were going to hang around and that was going to agitate his dad. So determining that somebody is the right fit is really important in this, in at least my opinion, in this industry, because that allows you to have a much higher chance of success. And if you're not going to be the right fit, then do the right thing by the family and the client and put them on the path for the right success by guiding them to where a solution will work for them so that they can do what's right for their mom or their dad. And like I said, that's the final step. If we're the right fit, we move forward and we continue to have that conversation and really dive deep into what that care plan is, which are kind of the next steps with this. And that's where the bulk of the time is spent. And I'll go through that in another video. But that understanding and aligning part of our proven process and our onboarding and that initial call is imperative, because we want to understand the situation. We want to understand what the care needs are, let them know how this industry works, so they're prepared for the pros and the cons of this industry, and then determine if we're the right fit. If we're the right fit, we can move to the next step. But if we're not the right fit, then we want to put them on the path to find success through different avenues, so that they're going to do right by their parents and the promises they've made to care for them, because they were cared for when they were little babies, and they want to do the right thing. And so, we look at ourselves in this process as just a guide. We're a guide for family members to try to find the right care. And if that right care is with Minute Women, we're happy to do business with somebody. And if we're not the right fit for them, we're guiding them on what could be the right fit and the right match for them, so that they can have success. And whether we get credit for that or not, I'm not too worried about that. I think all these things, what goes around comes around. And if we're doing the right things, and 99% of the time, what's right for our clients is right for our business. And when those are in parallel with one another, I think we're going to have sex. We're going to have success in the short term, and we're going to have success in the long term. And that is why we do the things that we do and the processes that we have, so that when it's the right fit, there's going to be a higher chance of success. But when it's not the right fit and there's a lower chance of success, we can tell them, hey, listen, this is why, and this is where we think you should look, and where you might want to put your efforts into finding care. And we have a big Rolodex of hundreds of people that we know in the Massachusetts area that can provide that help, whether it's with memory centers, whether it's with other home care companies, whether it's home health companies, whether it's hospice companies, geriatric care managers, assisted livings, CCRCs, memory care units, memory care assisted livings, mediators, and just, and then it goes into the other three legs of the other two legs of the stool. The first leg is the care team, which is what we're part of, but then you have the legal team, and then you have the wealth team, right? So the financial team. So what are you going to do about your Medicare or Medicaid insurance? Well, we have people we can introduce you for that. What do you want to do about long-term care insurance? We know people that can help you out with that as well. Wealth managers, financial advisors, folks that are going to be able to tell you, what you can afford and for how long. And then on the legal side, elder law attorneys and estate planners and folks like that, so that if you're in a position where you're realizing mom and dad haven't done anything with their estate, well, they have there's already a plan with the estate. It's called probate, and it stinks, and it's going to take up to 2 years to figure out and untangle the mess, I guess, if you want to call it, that when you go through probate versus paying money towards an estate planner, that's going to make that much easier for you and your family to move forward to. So when we go through the assessment, which are the subsequent steps after understanding and aligning, we want to make those recommendations to people so they can set themselves up for success through this journey with dementia. So that gives you an understanding of kind of what we look at when we're doing that initial 5 steps of a call, which is listening, understanding, care needs, education, and if we're the right fit or if we're the wrong fit. So hopefully that gives you some information. I hope you have a great evening. Cheers to you with my Diet Coke or my Coke Zero, and we'll catch you on the next one.